Monroe St. Brown first overall. How are you feeling about that?
I mean, I think it's always, when you're talking about the first round, I think it's always a go out and get your guy.
Come on.
Let's go. Oh, man, my heart was beating on that one.
I can just tell you, to get down to the actual numbers and projections, that team is going to score a lot. There's a lot of fantasy goodness.
There's 50 feet of shit, and then Kyler and Edwards.
So forget that. I don't want to draft guys on bad teams.
Doesn't matter. They're going to figure out a way to get the ball good offensive coordinator. Arthur Smith is not a good offensive coordinator.
You guys are team 3 and 4. There's no point to take Stroud, right? Is there a point to take Stroud in the best ball format?
Get it.
What's the proper way to attack the Cowboys' backfield in 2025? Which AFC North receiver is going to pay off big at his ADP? And which NFC North pass catcher is a must draft in the FFPC this season? Plus, we've got 2 guests tonight. Of course, we have 2024 KFFSC Main Event champion Craig Campbell here. FF Mastermind webmaster and 2025 Pros vs. Joe's drafter MIke Nazarek is here as well in our annual Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship Live Events preview. We've got a great show for you. Ferrell Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than neither lesser.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture, are we not all our father's sons? I became a man, nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you so much. Greetings and salutations to all you Balkaholics and Ferrelliacs. Appreciate that introduction from Rob. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by the Fantasy Football Players Championship at myffpc.com. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. You know me from the FFPC, the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, and the Better Sports Network's FFPC Insider Access show. My co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, one Ferrell Elliott. Coming up on tonight's show, we're going to talk about Keenan Allen, Christian McCaffrey, and then 2024 KFFSC Main Event champ Craig Campbell is going to hang out with us to talk about how his drafts are going this season and how he expects his drafts to go in Louisville next weekend for 2025. And FF Mastermind, MIke Nazarek, our annual visit from the Mastermind himself, the Pros vs. Joe's drafter. He's going to break down that draft for us, as well as some of his targets and fades for the 2025 season as well, including topics on CeeDee Lamb, Alvin Kamara, and so much more. If you want to connect with us on X, please do so at HSFF. I'm at Eric Balkman. Check out Ferrell's Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com. Live events start in Northern Kentucky tomorrow, and I'll be in Louisville next weekend with Craig Campbell. It's going to be a lot of fun. Facebook.com/HSFF is where to go. Email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us, now is the time to send them in. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, all the X posts and emails in the fantasy feedback segment later on in the show. Thanks to our audio engineer and my best friend, Bryce, and of course, our producer and mutual friend, Rob. I want to remind everybody too, with everything going on with fantasy right now, there's a ton going on with the FFPC. The Big Gorilla Tournament, maybe the headliner, maybe not the headliner, but at least number 2. $1 million grand prize. You're going to get a $50 discount on every third team you sign up for right now at myffpc.com. The 7 Bananas promo is live as well, so check that out at myffpc.com. Find out how you can get free main event teams, free best ball tournament teams, free high society teams, a free jungle safari for 4. To bring you up to date on this, if you keep getting that 7 pick randomly multiple times in a row, you're going to get free teams from us. We've already awarded, count them, 50 free FFPC Best Ball Tournament teams, and we just gave away our 5th FFPC Main Event team through this promo as well. People really do win with the FFPC, so check it out at myffpc.com. Our flagship event is the Main Event, a $1 million grand prize in that contest. Also, $6 million plus prize pool. Live drafts going on at myffpc.com each and every week going here until the start of the NFL season as well. The FFPC Best Ball and Superflex Best Ball tournaments going on at myffpc.com. $300,000 grand prize, a $100,000 grand prize, and the $35 Superflex entry as well. And we just added a $100K runner-up prize in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament. So you can not even win the whole thing for $125, and you're still going to win $100K. If you like playing Dynasty, fantasy football every single year, every single day of the year, myffpc.com is where to go for that. Leagues start at $100. They go up to $5,000, 2,000 plus leagues in 15 years. None have ever folded. myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, comment on it, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live on this channel, which will be next Wednesday. And I'll have more on that coming up at the latter part of the show. We have so much to get to tonight because we have a baller show for you tonight, including 2 guests. I want to bring on our first guest tonight, ladies and gentlemen. You've seen him on these airwaves before. He has been, I'll tell you what, before I get to him, I want to get to one of the busiest guys in the fantasy football industry right now. He is busy planning, and not really planning anymore because the plans have already been done, but he's busy executing a live event in Northern Kentucky tomorrow for the KFFSC Live Event weekend number 1. You can connect with him at the KFFSC, KFFSC.com. He is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. He is one of my good buddies. He is the incomparable Ferrell Elliott. Ferrell, so good to have you on tonight, man. Good evening.
Well, you've left me coughing and speechless with such a wonderful introduction, Balky. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Are you for Northern Kentucky tomorrow? I know you got a lot of drafts kicking off early in the morning and going on through whatever it is, late night, midnight tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun.
You sent me into a scare there for a moment because it seems like for the last few months, every day is similarly the same. I have to ask people what day it is. Now, when the football season starts and we'll know there's Sunday football, Monday football, and Thursday football, I'll be able to pretty much separate the days. But until then, I don't know. Now, you're telling me it's tomorrow. I had to make a quick check because, of course, in Northern Kentucky, we draft at the Marriott, Airport Marriott there in Northern Kentucky, on Sunday, Balky, on Sunday. And I thought I might have misplaced 24 hours. It's quite feasible. And I'm sorry I'm a little bit delayed in joining you tonight, but I was straightening out things with an air conditioning man. Fortunately, it wasn't a big operation to get the air conditioning in the upstairs rooms to start blowing cold air again. But, next weekend I have some dignitaries staying here at the house with me. Our beloved Jimmy Johnson is staying. And, Jimmy being a Southerner, he was born to withstand this kind of weather. Jeff Joaquin coming in from Los Angeles with no air. We would have to bury Jeff Joaquin before the weekend was over. So thank goodness we got the air back on.
Jeff Joaquin is already a miracle of nature. I listened to his story, was blown away a couple of years ago at the live events in Louisville. One of my favorite people to say hi to and catch up with each and every year, which I'll be doing, not this weekend, but the weekend after in Louisville. Ferrell, I want to bring on one of my other good buddies from Louisville and a guy that clearly I did not listen to enough the last time he was on this show, because what he did last year was just go out and win the 2024 KFFSC Main Event. This is a guy, he's one of the players that I always talk about when I bring players onto the show. There are certain players, I just don't know how many leagues they've won because they've won so many, and he's one of them. And he's joining us tonight, ladies and gentlemen, on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. You know him, you love him. He is the 2024 Kentucky Fantasy Football State Champion Main Event winner. Please welcome back onto the show, Mr. Craig Campbell. Craig, good evening. Congratulations, and thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight.
Thank you, Balky. Hey, Ferrell. Hey, Balky. How are you doing this evening?
Buddy, I'm doing great. I did not approve this haircut. What has happened? What's going on? I barely recognize you. You've got a summer weave working there.
Well, we gotta keep it fresh, man. We gotta keep it fresh.
You're always fresh, buddy. You're always one step ahead of the competition. Balky, on top of that, Craig was a significant winner in one of the big paybacks this year. So Craig had a mighty fine season here in Kentucky, and he'll be joining us for his regular teams that he does in the FFPC in Las Vegas at the Paris Hotel and Casino this year. And one of those teams will be sponsored as part of his championship season. One of those teams will be sponsored by us here at the KFFSC, and we couldn't have a better champion. Craig, I was thinking, last year this time, Randy Lavender, what a great champion he is, and we're very, very fortunate to have the kind of guys that we have that play in the league, and you are certainly a wonderful example of that. And I wish you continued success this year. You're going to tell us what you did last year. Balky's got some questions for us to tell us what you're going to do this year. This close, I doubt if you'll give up any real information. So I will just say, listener, beware. Craig Campbell can be slippery when you start asking him these kind of questions.
Well, okay, so we have to lead things off here tonight with one of, I think, the toughest questions to answer in high stakes fantasy football this year, Craig. Are you in or are you out on Saquon Barkley as a top half of the first round pick in fantasy leagues this year, my friend?
Yeah, I would say I'm going to kind of straddle the fence on this one. I've seen him drop to the 7 or 8 pick in a lot of drafts this year. And I'm definitely willing to take him there. But yeah, I don't know, it's hard not to be in on him after his season last year. I guess for these, for the main events for the KFFSC and the FFPC, I definitely try to target wide receivers in the first round. That's generally what I'm looking at. But, if Saquon slips, he's been slipping a little bit with Gibbs going so high now. If he slips to that 7 or 8 pick, I'm definitely willing to take him there.
Wow, look what Bob Hogan just posted. The Saquon went 9th in your Big Gorilla there, Balky. And Stephen G says just went 7th overall in the main event. I mean, that's bargain, man. I agree with you, Craig. I might have to get off a wide receiver there and take Barkley.
But that's what it comes down to, right, Craig? Is you're not willing to pull the trigger at the 3 or the 4, but once you get to the 7, the 8, the 9, then all of a sudden Saquon Barkley becomes a little bit more palatable, a little bit more attractive.
Yeah, and I'm a value guy, so that seems like a good value to me. And if people are letting him slip to that pick, then yeah, I'll probably go for it.
We've had this question bounce around now for a while. Balky is searching for an answer while I have thrown up my hands and just said, what's the answer to the Dallas Cowboys backfield? And is there one?
Yeah, I think if there is an answer, it's probably Jaden Blue, because I don't know. I guess I'm just thinking about that stretch run in the playoffs. And that's probably the one guy that's probably going to be a difference maker during that time. Javonte, looking at his kind of performance the last couple of years, I can't really see him doing that. I do kind of like Miles Sanders as a really late round pick, just to kind of if he's going to fill that role and get the work, especially in best ball leagues. Definitely I think that's a really good pick to make in the last few rounds. But I think Blue is probably the answer, and I wouldn't rule out the possibility that they're going to maybe trade for a running back, or it just seems kind of crazy what they're doing with the cast of characters they have going into this year. So it'll be Blue for me, or probably nothing.
I don't normally do this, but I will do it because I was just hanging out with my good buddy Dalton Erdman, who is chiming in on YouTube right now, watching the Milwaukee Brewers win their 13th game in a row, which has been fantastic. Ferrell, I know you don't like baseball references.
I love baseball. I love baseball.
There you go.
I really do.
Shifting your focus to half-point PPR, Craig, which I know you don't play a whole lot of, but if you were in a league with half-point PPR and you had the number 1 overall pick, would you go Jamar Chase? Would you take Bijan Robinson? Would you go somebody else with half-point PPR as the first overall pick?
So I'm probably still going Chase there just because I like the value of the running backs coming back at the 2-3 turn better than the wide receivers. So probably just locking in Chase. And then, you know, you have like running backs like Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Bucky, all kind of slipping to that 2-3 turn. So I'd rather take my running back pick there and then just lock in Chase at number 1.
Which makes sense to me.
What the hell is your friend Dalton thinking about 0.5 PPR? And why isn't he over here playing in Kentucky and Las Vegas? And, you know, we have questions. I got to look back. I'm not through trying to understand how you won the KFFSC last year. And I want the listeners to kind of see what can happen. They're veterans of drafts. They know anything can happen, but you know, hindsight allows us to see, as you talk about things falling your way. You were Team 7. Did you choose Team 7? You know, for everyone listening, you get to bid on your position in the KFFSC by using your free agent bidding dollars. So did you choose 7, or did you just hang around and take it for a very nominal amount?
I mean, yeah, it definitely not a planned thing. I wanted to go wide receiver with the first couple of picks, and like in the KFFSC, like the wide receivers just fly off the board. So I like to just, you know, get a couple of wide receivers and then see what falls at running back. And in that draft, I think I got Chase in the first round and then Puka in the second round.
Chase at 7, Puka in the
back. And at that time, Puka was. I think there was like a lot of injury concerns around Puka, so he was slipping in drafts. So I got both of them at 1, 2, and then I want to say my third round pick. I think I got Achan, and
then
Diggs was obviously a bust, whatever. But I got Josh Jacobs at in round 5, which I thought was, I mean, at the time was a great value. And then I want to say
Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas.
I'm
looking at it right here. Before you go too far in it, that's about as far as I wanted to go, because we've got a question coming up, but an observation that I would make. All this conversation about Puka and his injury. So you don't live in fear and you let value fall to you. And Jacobs in the 5th. And those are don't live in fear, let value fall to you, stay on your guys. Balky, that's my message of how you be successful.
Yeah, Ferrell, this is something we preached on for years on this show, is you don't draft being afraid. You draft with conviction and you get your guys. And that's certainly what Craig did last year. And he ended up
let rumors scare you from getting your guys.
The speaking of guys, I think Craig and you've been doing this for years. These injury away type guys, these backup running backs, they're always been like a gold mine if you hit on the right one. When we talk about Tyler Algier in Atlanta this year, how high up is he on your list of these backup running backs that you want to make sure you add in your FFPC and your KFFSC leagues this year?
Yeah, so Algier's probably been one of my top guys on my list as I'm going through all these best ball drafts these years, because I mean he's pretty clearly the RB2 there in Atlanta, and you know that he's basically just one injury away from being an RB1, and like a lot of these other running backs that go in, you know, at those RB2s. You're not really sure that they're going to get the full workload when an injury happens. With Algier, you know that he's going to get the full workload. He's going to be catching passes out there. He's going to be ranked as probably a top 5 running back, I would say, top 5, top 10 in the weekly rankings if an injury occurs. And then, like in addition to that, especially in like a best ball format, you're going to get these random weeks with him where he's going to put up like a touchdown, or, you know, he's going to be hitting your lineup. So, he's been one of my favorite picks to make in the later rounds this year.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to the receiver, because I'm wondering some of the guys that are going to fall and might fall. There doesn't seem to be support for Jalen Waddle like there's been in the past. I'm sure that there's favorites for him out there that will continue to draft him. But your thoughts on Waddle, and why may he be a real value pick at receiver?
Yeah, I mean, I think a few reasons. So obviously the Dolphins were kind of a dumpster fire last year, and like kind of throwing out last year's numbers just because they had a non-functioning offense essentially. If you look back at his prior years, like he's been, an elite wide receiver. In addition to that, Tyreek, you just look at the whole situation there with Tyreek Hill. It doesn't seem very stable, and he's also been, looking at his metrics over the last couple of years, definitely been in decline. Definitely, getting older. Waddle's in that age range where he's still in his prime, and he definitely falls into the range where you probably want to take a shot on him.
Let's flip it to Brandon Ayuk. The latest we've got on him is certain reports saying, Craig, he's not going to be ready till week 6, week 7, maybe even week 8. What kind of a season do you expect Ayuk to have when he does come back in 2025?
Yeah, it's really, up in the air for me, but, obviously, he's shown the talent in the past to be like a clear, wide receiver one on that team. There's no more Debo there. The injury situation, like I'm not an injury expert, so I have no idea, but, I think you kind of have clear information at this point that he's going to be coming back probably, week 6 or week 7. There'll be a ramp up period, and you can kind of plan that into your draft approach to have him as, a bench stash, and he can definitely be, a hammer down the stretch for you if things hit right. So I think on the right team builds that he's probably a pretty good pick.
I'm curious about that, because I think that the team is doing really, really well. They work him in, but how many snaps does he get? And if the team is doing really, really poorly, well, what will he change? And I don't see them doing poorly, but I don't know. That's just a little late for me. I don't know. But I love the way that you guys are thinking that you're going to be in good shape when you get a receiver back in week 6 or 8, which that's gonna. They better hope he comes back, because that's when all those bye weeks start. Okay,
so Ferrell, you're gonna. I know you want to ask about the Packers receivers here.
I want an answer. That's what I'm looking for. We ask every week. I'm looking for somebody to deliver us an answer.
All right. So before we get to that, I just want to bring up Darren Armani, FantasyMojo.com, at FantasyMojo on X, the godfather of the Pros vs. Joes Challenge. Anytime we cite ADP on this show, it's all due to him. Right now, Brandon Ayuk is going off as wide receiver 57. Wow. This dude has fallen to the mid-12th round. This is Christian Kirk, Keenan Allen, Marvin Mims territory. So even if you don't like him at this point, listen to Craig Campbell and understand that this player is not going to be a guy that's going to be putting up 30-plus fantasy points in week 1 or week 2. But later on in the season, non-zero chance that he is helping you, and you're giving up a 12th round pick.
Yeah, I'll take him at that price. I had no idea you dropped that far.
12th round, dude. 12th round. Insane.
I'd take it. Okay. Is anybody at Green Bay worth a damn 12th round pick? That's how I'll ask that question this way. Because, see, Balky has a terrestrial radio show in north-south Wisconsin. And he's got to come with some sort of content for the listeners up there every week. So we kind of troll all our guests to get the right kind of answer. So far, he hasn't got much to save his position and to inform the Green Bay Packer fans, some of the most noted, loyal, and passionate fans in all the business. So tell me, Craig, put a little Kentucky wisdom in there. Green Bay wide receivers in fantasy football, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, they're all at different values right now. I would say that Golden, though, I mean, just what I'm hearing over the last week or two is that he's really coming on. I mean, they draft a first round pick. their wide receivers were a mess last year. I think they want someone to emerge there as the wide receiver one. Reed's been banged up. Dubs doesn't have, a whole lot of upside. He's solid, but I think they want Golden to be the guy. And I was listening to an interview with Jordan Love, and he was talking him up just like without even being prompted. This guy is awesome. So, Balky, I hope for your sake it is Golden, and he is the guy. I will say though, I've been drafting a lot of Dubs just late in these best ball drafts, not like in a season in like a main event league. I'm not sure if he necessarily has the upside. Maybe, you never know with injuries, but like he seems like a good value also.
Craig, let me ask you this as a follow-up. Who would you rather have at cost right now? Matthew Golden at the end of the 7th round or Jaden Reed at the end of the 9th round?
I'll probably just take Golden. Okay.
I think, by the way, I think you're right on that. That's probably like I have huge mea culpa, and I don't know if I've said it on this show, but I think I'm wrong about Golden, and I'm willing to say that right now. And when I'm in Louisville next weekend, I'll probably be taking Matthew Golden as my wide receiver 4 in several of those drafts. I think based on everything I've seen, everything I've read, I think that this guy, there's a reason the Packers went out and drafted him in the 1st round, which they never do for a receiver. And I know they've said, well, it just didn't work out in previous years. Maybe, but I think they were really targeting Golden this year, and he's been paying off in spades for sure.
Well, Balky, what has happened to let's go further down that depth chart, because there were guys that were on the field and being drafted last year that we're not talking about. Are those guys just gone from consideration?
I'm still skeptical that I'm more positive that Christian Watson is going to play at some point this season. And you can get him late in your drafts. I just wonder if he's the type of guy that's worth keeping on your roster through all the bye weeks and everything before he's available. Remember, Christian Watson, I think, like last year from a fantasy standpoint, wasn't all that great. He was really good for the Packers offense. Packers offense was awesome when Watson was on the field. Just didn't turn out for fantasy. So that's one of them. Dobbs, to Craig's point, I think is solid. He's fine, but he's not the type of guy that's going to be winning your week. I don't know what the upside is there. And then you have Dontavian Wicks, who I still like late in best ball leagues, but he's allergic to the football as of 2024. I think he, starts catching the ball again in 2025, but I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong on that. So, I think like Golden and Reed is where it's at. And Tucker Kraft, we got to bring up Tucker Kraft as well. This is a guy that I think I have not drafted enough of this season. That's another player I am looking at for 2025. Yeah, Opera Doc right now is in the chat. Wicks, meh. You could be right, Opera Doc. I could be wrong on Dontavian Wicks. He's one of those guys that I just feel like I'm going to bet on him in late in best balls. In redraft leagues, managed leagues, I'm not drafting. Sticking in the same division here, Craig. Luther Burden, the 2nd-round pick for the Chicago Bears. How have you been handling him this year in both FFPC and KFFSC drafts? Are you bullish or bearish on the Chicago rookie receiver?
Yeah, I'm definitely on the bullish side, just based on where he's going. I mean, he's going, I think, in the drafts I've been in, kind of like the 11th, 12th round. And, at that point in your draft, you have your, hopefully have 4 or 5 wide receivers. At that point, I'm really looking for upside picks at that point. He was drafted, the one wide receiver that's been drafted by the new regime there to hopefully fill a specific role. Odunze did not impress a lot last year. DJ Moore had I know it was a down year for the Bears in general, but at that point in the draft, that's a pick I want to make that just has a lot of upside.
I want to move on and talk about Dallas Goedert. Ferrell has already been on this show numerous times talking about why he doesn't like Goedert from a redraft standpoint this season. Can you do a good job, Craig, in selling our listeners / viewers on why Dallas Goedert is a player that FFPC players and quite frankly KFFSC players need to not forget about and maybe want to get on their rosters this year?
Yeah. So Goedert is one of my highest drafted tight ends.
Wow.
Yes. All right, Ferrell.
Wow.
So he goes in a range of the draft where, I think you want to be drafting tight ends. There's that little pocket of tight ends there that go after a lot of the, kind of the your starting wide receivers go. And I mean, Goddard, you want in general, you obviously want tight ends on elite offenses. And if you look at last year, the Eagles obviously ran the ball quite a bit, lots of rushing touchdowns. The schedule this year, though, is going to be a lot tougher. They're likely going to have to throw the ball a lot more. And in addition to that, you have some upside here with, you have Brown and Smith. If one of them goes down, all of a sudden Goddard is the number 2 option in that offense. And, who knows where it goes from there. He was really crushing it down the stretch and into the playoffs. So yeah, he's one of the tight ends I'm definitely in on.
Well, it's because I have some show and tell things, and I'm glad of the way you answered that. And you segue right into my first show and tell from Stephen G, and available this weekend to anyone who is bold enough to wear one, Balky. And Craig, we'll have one with your name on it when you get to it's getting there. It's sort of an unveiling kind of thing, But and I love this because Balky looks so handsome, so professional, so is so typical of the broadcast genius that he is. And I look like, I'm like praying for an answer. And this is the kind of expression that I had on my face.
I love it. Look at that.
You're talking about Goddard. Can you see that? I'm looking up at the roof, praying for some sort of inspiration. This is our. So I've got one there for you. And then this poor little sad thing that we go back to COVID, and our beloved John Rosick, who, when COVID hit, he couldn't travel here for 2 or 3 years. And when we went to buy trophies for the championship after the COVID year, this sad little example of a trophy was all that the suppliers could come up with for our divisional trophies. And it is, so John Rosick will get to this. Will finally catch up with him 5 years later after he comes. But, that Rosick might not want it when he sees the Craig Campbell trophy.
Oh, look at that.
Look at that.
In Louisville this year. So there's
love it.
Show and tell. And we're awarding over 68 trophies this year. And how I'm going to get them over there, I don't know. But congratulations, Craig. Here's a teaser, and you got to find a beautiful place for it in your home. And, securing your dominance and having something to point to. It's good stuff. So T-shirts and trophies, that's what we've got. That's what we've got going on. And my brother is upstairs. I mean, he's been laughing at this all day, is my expression on this all day. And he says, do you need a neck massage? It's great. I love it. It's wonderful. Steve G, cashiering. Thank you, Steve.
Hold that T-shirt up again to the camera. I want to go widescreen for everybody.
Okay.
They can see the HSFF Hour T-shirts here. This is Steven Yurgalos, our fantasy soprano.
We love him, Stephen G. We absolutely.
I love it. It is a fantastic shirt. It is a 100% fantastic shirt. Okay, we have to move on because we're running behind here a little bit. I want to skip the emails tonight.
Why?
Yeah, we got to keep moving forward here, Ferrell. But I will
We're
ask
always
Craig,
moving forward when you're talking with Craig.
well, listen, that's the thing is like we're picking the brain of the master here, the 2024 KFFSC champ. And Ferrell, why else would we have the champ on if he's not going to tell us who are the players to target and who the players to avoid are in 2025 as he defends his belt?
Damn straight, Craig. Tell us somebody you love and somebody that you just cannot stand.
Okay.
Give us something to invest our hopes that we can someday be like you, and then somebody that we wouldn't want to.
All right. Yeah. So a couple of guys I've liked recently, and these are kind of later round guys, but two wide receivers. Both go by the first name of Jalen. Jalen Knoll from the Texans, and then Jalen McMillan from the Bucs. So, for Jalen Knoll, just like, I don't know. I think everyone's assuming that Higgins is going to be like the number 2 wide receiver there, and I guess I'm not so sure about that. And like, Jalen Knoll goes like basically the last round, so he's a staple for me in the last round. Just everyone's pushing up all the rookies nowadays. He doesn't seem to be getting the same kind of love, but I'm training camp reports seem like they're pretty good. Maybe won't have a role week 1, but I think he might be pretty good as the season moves on. And then Jalen McMillan, just like the Bucs situation with Godwin, who knows when he's coming back. Evans getting older. Everyone's hyped about Ekbuka, and McMillan actually performed pretty well down the stretch last year. And he's kind of a forgotten guy there. So both those guys are 2 guys I want to draft like late as far in terms of like upside wide receivers.
Craig, before you get the guy that you don't like, I want to go to Opera Doc here, who wants to know, when you talk about Jalen Knoll in regards to Jaden Higgins, do you think that he's going to surpass Christian Kirk as the slot guy in Houston this year?
Yeah, I think Kirk, obviously, I think Kirk will be starting week 1, and we'll see what happens from there. I would just say that NFL seasons are complete chaos, and who knows, if he has talent, they'll get him on the field in some way. So, I'm just kind of banking on that. It's a later round pick. We'll see what happens.
Can you tell the viewers / listeners of a player you're avoiding this year?
Yeah. So when I look at players I'm avoiding, I'm kind of looking at kind of maybe lower upside players, at least in my view, that are going in the early rounds. One of those guys is Chuba Hubbard for the Panthers. Just, I guess I'm trying to avoid the guys that are, at least in my perspective, are getting drafted because of the workload, more so than the talent. And to me, he's a guy. And then you have Rico Dowdle coming in there, where I think he could get a lot of the pass catching work. And so, he's just a guy that when I'm envisioning someone being like a top 5, top 10 running back, I'm not sure that he has that type of upside.
I like that answer because, Balky, that's a brave answer. Rico Dowdle, Balky, how many yards in Dallas last year?
Rico Dowdle last year for the Dallas Cowboys.
You can win this bet. You can win this bet with everyone.
Do you want me to name it?
Yeah, I want you to set it up. Yeah.
912. I'm going to say 912. I don't know.
All right, Craig, you coming in on Rico Dowdle with a number? You already know it.
850.
I think both you guys might be under.
We are. I just looked it up. Do you want me to tell?
Lay it out. Opera Doc's already giving it to the guys in the chat.
Yeah, right now, yeah. Opera Doc said he had over 1,000 yards, didn't start till like week 9, 1,079 rushing yards last year for Rico Dowdle, 249 receiving yards as well, and he got in the end zone, count them 5 times.
Tell Terp to take Pollard 24 games to get that. Tell Terp.
Yeah, Ferrell, I don't know what you're talking about. This is a guy. Like you gotta be drafting him early on. That's what Terp would say. Something. I gotta work on my Terp. Okay, Craig. Good stuff tonight. I'm sorry we had to land on a Terp impression, but we will see you in Louisville as you defend your 2024 KFFSC Main Event belt. As you try to go back-to-back, a feat that has not been accomplished a lot, Ferrell. What, one time?
One time. Carrie and Fox.
Carrie and Fox did it, yeah. Mm-hmm. And we'll see if you can do it this year. I will see you then. Enjoy the rest of the drafting season. I hope I am not in a whole lot of leagues with you next weekend in Louisville, but that's probably inevitable. We will talk with you then. Thanks so much for hopping on the show tonight, man. This was a lot of fun.
Sure. Thanks for having me, guys. I'll see you next weekend.
You got it.
Thank you.
Craig Campbell, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, you can follow Craig on the X at CCampbellFF. Once again, that is CCampbellFF. And you say, oh, Balky, that was a great show. No. We have much more to get to tonight.
We're still going.
Oh, we are still going.
We're going.
And I want to bring on a guest tonight who has been on this show countless times, and he's never disappointed. Maybe the longest intro in show history, but he is deserving of it. This is a guy who has been giving advice, not just drafting fantasy football. He's been giving advice through his website for damn near 4 decades. He operates one of the longest running fantasy football information websites. This goes back way into the early to mid 90s. And remember that this is a guy that won the Sports Illustrated Experts League title in 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007. He was the only winner in the 4 years that league existed. And you say, Balky, why are you bringing it up? That was 20 years ago. They had to cancel this league because this guy won the league every single year. Like, what else can he do? Like, he just won it no matter who they put in. He won it 4 years straight. He is the CEO and president of Fantasy Football Mastermind Incorporated. You can register and get a subscription now at ffmastermind.com. That website, once again, ffmastermind.com. Connect with him on the X at ffmastermind. Please welcome back on to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, a guy who has won well over a dozen high-stakes titles in the FFPC, Mr. MIke Nazarek. Mike, good evening and welcome. So glad to have you back on these airwaves, my friend. How are you?
Doing great. Always a happy time to be with you guys. Always look forward to it.
It's a happy time for us too, because you are in rarefied air, my friend. There's all these people that have websites and X followings and podcasts or whatever, but you came before all that. You've weathered all that. You've adjusted with the times. I don't know if there's anybody with as much experience as you have out there. So anytime we get to pick your brain and come on the show tonight, it's always a fun time. And I think you can probably speak to that too. And we've talked about this over the years. Fantasy football has evolved over the years. You have evolved with it. You've rolled with the punches. And here you are here in 2025, 30 years later, whatever it was since you started, and you're still churning out some of the best advice in the industry.
Yeah, we're celebrating 30 years online, 1996 to 2025. It's just amazing that we're still around. And I was one of the first people to write about the stud running back theory back in the mid 90s. And now, I don't have a problem drafting wide receivers and even a tight end in the first round if need be because of this contest. Everything has changed, everything evolved, and yet in a lot of ways it's still the same. It's it's a joy to help out everyone, and it's a joy to play the game too.
So I want to lead things off with tonight's conversation with your pros versus Joe's draft. You have been in this, I don't know how many years now. I mean, a dozen plus, probably more than that. But I want to talk with you a little bit about what you did in this year's draft. You were drafting from the 9 spot in PVJ number 6. This was the final live draft we had. And you were selecting, like I said, at the 9 spot there. After it was all over, how did you feel you did with this 20-round best ball team with the FFPC? How did you feel your team turned out?
Well, first of all, it was the 8th hole, but you're very close.
All right. Yeah,
that's okay. That's cool. No, I feel very happy with the team that I got. I feel that there's only one player late in the draft that I got snaked on, and the guy that I drafted instead of him, I think is probably has a better shot to have a better season.
Who was that, Mike?
Keenan Allen.
And you got snaked. Who were you trying to draft? Who
Pat Bryant. I was going for a sleeper, Pat Bryant.
It doesn't matter who you were going to in the first round when you come out with CD Lamb at the 8 spot. That's not going to happen again. So you better enjoy it. You better celebrate it. And that's why you're the mastermind. I think you kind of befuddled everyone else into not. Did you put out some CD Lamb counter espionage stuff that week to try to confuse the other drafters?
It was insane. It was a great pick, Mike.
I'm very happy with it. People seem to forget a couple of years ago what he was WR1, and that was with a healthy Dak. And I think mostly because Dak got hurt, he wasn't in the elite. But if Dak stays healthy, I don't see any reason why he's not going to be right up there with Chase.
The selection that we're talking about is CD Lamb at the 108 in the pros versus Joe's draft. This is a couple of weeks ago. Mike, was there anybody else you were considering there once you saw Lamb fall to you?
It's hard not to pick him there. Malik Neighbors. I like Neighbors, but the toe injury was a little bit of concern there. I don't forecast injuries. I mean, so Lamb is healthy, Dak's healthy. You got to go with what you go. I mean, I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, I've seen CeeDee Lamb go at the 102 in plenty of FFPC drafts so far this season. I love MIke Nazarek, Mike, but I'm with you. I would have taken Lamb there, and I wouldn't have thought a whole lot about it. You mentioned the Pat Bryant pick. You tried to grab Eric Young. The FFPC Joe ends up grabbing him from you there. You still end up with Keenan Allen, which I think was a fantastic pick, obviously. Do you have a favorite pick in this Pros versus Joes draft, and perhaps a pick that you wish you would have had back?
Yeah. The guy that slipped to me in the second round, Nico Collins. I mean, I was like, wow. I love me some Puka. And in fact, in this draft a couple of years ago, when Puka was a rookie at the end, towards the end of the draft, I was trying to draft somebody else. And I didn't get him. And guess who I ended up drafting instead? It was Puka. So I love me some Puka, okay? But
oh gosh,
Stafford's back injury is just a huge worry and a concern. And so I was like, when the guy right before me took Puka, I was like, oh my gosh, Nico Collins, come to daddy.
Yeah, I'm with you. It would have been Collins over Nakua 100 times out of 100. What if he ends up going with Nico Collins there, and you were faced with the decision of Nakua versus Brian Thomas? Would you have taken Nakua over Brian Thomas, or don't? I guess it's maybe something you haven't thought a whole lot about since that that opportunity never presented itself.
Probably would have taken Thomas. That's how much I'm concerned about Stafford. Because I know this is late July, but I think he'd already started having some issues the very first week of training camp. And, here we are. He has a good workout on Sunday, and then he doesn't practice Monday, Tuesday, or the whole week. And yet he's going to throw again this weekend, and kind of crossing your fingers. I know Jimmy Garoppolo is not bad quarterback, but, other teams have tried to go with Jimmy as their starter and not gotten anywhere.
I hope that I'm not drafting against Opera Doc, because he obviously can read my mind. The next question that I have, and we've already alluded to him, is your Keenan Allen pick. I'm curious of what your expectations are about Keenan Allen, and if we can see him move up a little bit in this draft, because he's essentially free now. And then an observation about your enthusiasm. The question that I have: you've been doing this for so many years. Do you still get the thrill out of drafting that you did? And perhaps do you, with all the hours that you put in the media prep, do you actually enjoy it more than you did back in the 90s and early 2000s?
Probably, I'd say, because I know that times have changed, but I feel so prepared with all the work that I do for my subscribers and the site that, and I feel that one of my best assets, abilities is to be able to change strategies on a dime, because you cannot go into this thing going, okay, I'm going to draft this guy here, this position here, and you have to be prepared almost for anything. And so I can make, big decisions on the fly and take risks. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. But as long as you have a good idea, ADP and such, that and you have good strategies, multiple strategies at the same time, then I think everything is great. And especially when you finish a draft, you feel that you got a good team, then it's like, all right, game's on, let's go. But as for Keenan Allen, this goes back a long way, because I have a dynasty team. I have two dynasty teams in the FFPC, and one of them we drafted about 5 years ago, and he was in my original draft. And so I've had him for many years. The other team, when I bought the team, he wasn't on it. And during the dynasty draft, in one of the later round picks, 6th, 7th round, something like that, I ended up picking up Keenan Allen, and I've drafted him almost all over the place. And so, I feel that 70 catches, 800-900 yards, 4 or 5 scores, that's very reachable. And that he could even go over that. Although I think his career high, is like 7 or 8 touchdowns in a season.
I think the other thing to keep in mind too here, and I'm glad you brought this up, Mike. I have a buddy who, he crushes his home leagues or whatever, and he's been sleepwalking through it for years. And in 2023, I wanted to say, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna play in the FFPC this year, and I'm not gonna name him because I like him. But he's like, I know exactly where every player is going to go. I know who I'm going to get, where I'm going to get. I know my draft slot. I'm going to be able to crush this league. And spoiler alert, Morgan Freeman voice, he did not. And I think part of the reason was because he was not flexible and he was not of the understanding, as you are, Mike, who's been drafting the FFPC for years. You have to be like water. You know, these drafts can go any which way. ADP, I don't want to say you throw it out the window, but it's in one singular draft in the FFPC, it can be radically different. You have to be willing to switch your strategy. And I think the people who do that, like you, and you've had a lot of success in the FFPC, those are the people who end up winning. They win their leagues, they move on, they go for the $1 million. Like that's the way to do it. Okay. I want to move on to Christian McCaffrey here, Mike, and talk with you a little bit about him, because I think he is a very polarizing player this year. There are plenty of people that would tell you, hey, I got to get this guy at the end of the first round, early second round. If he's healthy all the season, he is going to absolutely crush it. And then there's going to be a lot of people that will tell you, I am not touching this guy at all. All he does is get hurt. I'm not willing to deal with that headache if I have to sink a first round or a second round pick in to him this year. Where would you, MIke Nazarek from Fantasy Football Mastermind, ffmastermind.com, where would you start to consider Christian McCaffrey in your FFPC drafts this year?
Well, I've also got a long history with CMC, because also on the team where I have Keenan Allen and the team that I won my championship last year, I did it with CMC on my bench for all but 4 games. And I got lucky, okay, but it happens. And because I've got him actually on both dynasty teams, I'm not going to take him in the first round. It's just too much of an injury risk issue, because the way I view the first couple of rounds is that I don't think you can win your draft or your league in the first round, but you can certainly lose it if you take the wrong player. And I just see him climbing and climbing and climbing. The more and more we're going on, there's no reports of him missing anything at camp. Whatever kind of health cure he found in Germany is obviously working for him, but who knows if that's going to continue lasting. And I got burned last year with him because I didn't own Isaac Orendo, or actually Jordan Mason. I didn't own Isaac Orendo either till later, but I didn't own Jordan Mason. And when he missed that first game on Monday night, I didn't put a high enough bid to get him. And I still ended up winning the league, but to have somebody miss so many games for something like that, he's getting a little older. What is he, 28? So he's approaching 30. He still looked good. He was just about to really start kicking it in last year when he got that knee injury during that game. What were they playing? I think they were playing the Bills, weren't they? It was. I love him when he's healthy. I've got him on Dynasty. I'm going to rely on him there. And so if you were to slide to the middle of the second round, I would consider it, but I'm not going to take him as my first player.
December 1st is when he went out for the rest of the year. To your point, Mike, against the Bills, 7 carries, 53 yards. That was 7.5 yards a carry. He had 2 catches for 14 yards in that game. He looked well on his way. Until he wasn't.
He basically, the first 3 games, he was playing preseason. He was in preseason shape. He wasn't in football shape. And here he just starts ripping these long runs off, and he goes right up the middle and up trips and lands right on that knee, and that's it. And I'm like, wow.
I will say this too: 3.5 games last year, he had 19 targets. He got 15 of those targets, 15 catches in 3.5 games. For anybody who's doubting McCaffrey, I'm just telling you, if he ends up blowing up this year, you have only yourself to blame. Anyway, go on.
He's a joy to watch, but he's always making just a cameo appearance. Balky has broken down has a cheat code on Dak. He says every other year, and I'm a believer because I believe in Balky, and Balky's laying it in with us. What's the cheat code on Tua? Is Tua going to have a bounce back year? Is he going to lead Craig earlier on the show talked about a confusion down in Miami. Is that team going to gel and rally around him? Is he going to lead the team to on-field success, consequently statistical success in fantasy football this year?
Well, when he came back last year, he looked pretty good. I think that as long as everyone is healthy, including himself, that he will rebound. Now, will he get to the point where he was a couple of seasons ago, where, you know, he's basically completing these long passes downfield to Waddle and Hill almost every play when they were throwing the football? I'm not quite sure if he can do that. But I think if he's totally healthy and makes it through the whole season, I think he could be low-end QB1. But the issue here is, where do you take him in the draft? And it's interesting that you mention him, because I took him as my third quarterback. I got him in round 16. You know, so that was no risk at all, you know, especially in the best ball format.
He right now in a non-best ball format in the FFPC Big Gorilla right now, he is going as quarterback 23 at the 1709. And to your point, Mike, you draft him that late, it doesn't work out. You drop him, you pick somebody else
It's
up.
amazing to me.
That's where Tagovailoa is going right now. It's just,
according to that, guys, I took him too soon. Oh my gosh!
But to your point, like in best ball, I would think he is going a little bit higher. So I think you dialed in and you got him at the right price on that. In redraft leagues, it's easier to drop him. So I'll just leave it at that. But I don't think you overdrafted him at all in pros versus Joes, Mike. Let's talk about Alvin Kamara and talk about draft values right now. Alvin Kamara in the FFPC Big Gorilla right now is going off the board as running back 17. He is going at the 403 in Big Gorilla draft. So you can get a guy last year who was heavily involved in the offense, catching a ton of balls, which in a PPR format like the FFPC is highly lucrative. You could get him in the early fourth round. Mike, when you look at Kamara and that Saints offense this year, how significant of a value is Kamara at the 403 right now?
I can't believe I got him in the fifth round at the 5'8" position in the pros versus Joes. But even in the fourth round, I think he is valued, especially considering was RB17 there. The fact is that the Saints are probably not going to be very good, but somebody has to run the ball. Somebody has to catch the ball. And if you got a quarterback that can't throw very far downfield accurately, what's he going to do? He's going to dump it, you know, and that's Alvin. And I know he's 30 and all, but you got guys like James Conner. All these guys are, Derrick Henry's even older than that, and they're still productive because it's a different type of athlete, different way that these athletes really prepare for the season. And I think that it's good if you can get him as an RB3. I mean, I got him as RB3 in the fifth round. That's crazy value.
Yeah, that's awesome. And congratulations on that too. But Ferrell, that's not at least in my opinion, that's not the only running back value that Mike got in pros versus Joes this year.
Pros versus Joes, you know, and I guess with your history, you know, you're one of the most celebrated pros in this business, but you will, Balky knows how close I keep in my heart the Joes, and you'll always be a Joe to me, Mike. And one of the things I loved what you were doing with Bill Merritt there in Washington, more famously known as Cross Key Merritt. Now, I drafted this player in every dynasty draft that I was in because I thought that he really couldn't be overdrafted. And now I'm getting trade offers for him on a regular basis, none of them that I'm willing to accept. Should my enthusiasm carry over into the FFPC main events and Big Gorillas here in August, or is he a project that we're going to see develop into his true form over the years? And a follow-up to that is what's your prediction? You're talking about older running backs. What's your predictions on Austin Eckler this year?
Okay, let's take that by parts here.
Yes.
I love me some Krosky Merritt. I drafted him in the pros versus Joes in round 17. Now I think the ADP on him is in the 12th round. I'm not quite sure if he's worth that much in the main event right now. If Brian Robinson looked like he was struggling or had some kind of training camp injury, where he was kind of gimping into the season. But I think that they're going to use Merritt as a pure backup to Brian Robinson initially in the season. And I think thinking he's going to spell him and all, but Austin Eckler is going to play the third down role there. So, I mean, I know that Austin Eckler had about 300 yards rushing or so last year and 300 yards receiving. And, when he stepped into the role when Brian Robinson missed a couple of games and really produced well, scored touchdowns. And I think that if something happens to Brian Robinson this year, it's going to be Merritt probably starting and mixing in back and forth with Eckler there. So for the future, I mean, Brian's going to want his second contract. I don't know if Washington's going to want to offer him a deal. I think that Merritt's going to see enough action on the field that they're going to be able to know what they have with him. And if they really like what they see and he produces well, and especially if Robinson misses 2 or 3 games and, Merritt really takes over, then I can see the change going right to him at the end of the year.
I'm going to give you a little leading question on Eckler. With Eckler's talent and skill set, now being asked to be just a contributor as a third down special back or a certain down and distance back, what's the ceiling on what you could expect from him in the receiving game?
That's a good question. Probably 500 yards receiving, something like that. It just really depends on the health of Ryan Robinson and how Merritt works his way into the role. I think initially you are going to see Eckler spell Brian Robinson, and you're probably not going to see much of Merritt early on in the season.
Okay.
But at some point they're going to mix him in, and maybe 2 or 3 carries in week 1 might become 6, 7, 8, and maybe a catch or 2 by week 4, 5, or 6. And it just really depends on the health of the backs. But if Brian Robinson remains productive and the guy's a bull at the goal, that's what's important. And if he can stay healthy. And how many weeks did we hear last year where, he's got an ankle or he didn't practice and he's questionable, but he's going to play. And, he finally ended up missing a couple of games. So I think that Washington wanted to go out and get somebody that can be an all-around workhorse back, maybe a little bit down the line. So, of course, in order to get a talent like that late in the draft and not spend too much draft capital, you had to go find somebody like Merritt in this situation here. And, he's got a lot to prove, but, who doesn't? When they're a rookie and they're not a first-round pick in the NFL, he's got to earn what he can get, and he wants to stay and earn a bigger role as we go on 2, 3, 4 years into it, and hopefully start down the road. That's what they want to do.
Mike, let me ask you an unfair question here. I've been hearing whispers and rumors that, and from different sources, obviously, that Brian Robinson is not a lock to make the Commanders team this year at Final Cuts. I've also heard the same thing about Austin Eckler, that he is not a lock to make the team at Final Cuts. Krosky Merritt is not going to be a player that they can cut and try to sneak him onto the practice squad. That's just not going to happen. Do you believe, and maybe, I don't know, you can give us a percentage chance if you want, but do you believe that not both, but Robinson, Eckler, and Krosky Merritt, you think they're all on the opening day roster for the Commanders this season?
I think so. Rumors are rumors. For me, the sources that I've heard, I haven't really heard that, but I guess now if it happens, I'm not going to be so surprised that it happens. But we're not talking about an aging back trying to make a roster. Robinson is still fairly young. Eckler is obviously pushing 30 or so. But he comes with a different type of skill set that the other 2 backs don't necessarily have. The thing about Merritt is, I think he can catch, do a little bit more catching better than Brian Robinson. So, maybe if you're going to say, if someone's going to get cut here, it might be Austin. Somebody's going to pick him up and sign him though, but of course, now we have the bye week after the 3rd preseason game. So a lot of juking and jiving and roster management is going to happen. So, I'm prepared for it, anything that happens, but I would be surprised. But having just drafted Merritt, if they cut Eckler, boy, I'm jumping up and down.
I still think it's going to be interesting to see, because there are, I'm not saying it's going to be Washington, but there are going to be some running backs that are going to be cut by these teams at cut down day, and we're going to be like, oh, really? And Dallas is going to be all over that. Like, they are going to be going hard on trying to figure out, like, hey, does this guy fit in with us, and see what happens there. So that's something we'll be watching for sure. Mike, I have to ask you here, and by the way, before we move on to this next question, to your point, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt has moved up to the 12-13 turn in both the main event and the FFPC Big Gorilla. He has moved ahead of running backs like Will Shipley, Woody Marks, Roshan Johnson, and Nick Chubb. So listen to MIke Nazarek. He knows what's going on with Krosky Merritt. What else does Mike know? We're going to ask him right now. Is there a player that you're trying to get on as many FFPC teams as possible, Mike? And then conversely, is there a player, we asked Craig Campbell this earlier, is there a player that you know right now, you could say, Balky, doesn't matter how many FFPC drafts I do, there's no way this guy will end up on any of my teams?
Well, I'm always a sucker for Derrick Henry. I've drafted him all over the place. He's on one of my dynasty teams. I drafted him last year. I think he is more in demand this year than he was certainly last year. I thought I might have had a shot to get him in the second round of the Pros versus Joes, but no, he was snaked at the end at the 1-2 turn, and I was kind of surprised about that. As for quarterbacks, I like me some Joe Burrow this year, but if he goes too early, then I'm going to wait 2, 3, 4 rounds and maybe go for some Baker Mayfield, similar type player, gunslinger, a lot of good weapons around him. As for a player that I'm probably not going to draft, and it's not that I hate him, but the situation in Miami, Devon Achane, there's talk that he's not going to be the goal line back. They want to use Jalen Wright there at the goal. And then, of course, if Tua goes down, just like last year, you're still going to see a lot of Achane, but you're going to have a lot of 8, 9, 10-point games instead of 15, 20, 25-point games because that offense is not going to do. I just say Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, all going to be neutered if Tua misses any kind of significant time in because of injury in the league.
With your love of Henry, where does he become available to you in the first round? Or does
Mike, before you answer that, I'm going to tell you right now in the FFPC Big Gorilla. Now, okay, we're going to take a big step back here. In that Pros versus Joes draft, Jim Coventry was drafting at the 12 spot there, and Jim is famous, maybe infamous for he's just going to get his guys wherever. So that 1-2 turn, I'd be willing to say, is the only 1-2 turn we've seen in any FFPC Best Ball tournaments this year. He went Derrick Henry and then Josh Jacobs at the 201. That dude just gets his guys. Like it is what it is. So be it, so forth. Jim could be right. Jim's a very smart drafter, like MIke Nazarek. But I will say, like, the Henry Jacobs turn definitely caught us off guard when we were covering that. Right now in the FFPC Big Gorilla, Mike, I'm looking at Derrick Henry. He's going off the board as RB7 at the 204. Granted, right around the neighborhood where he could have been for you at the 205 in that draft.
Yeah. It is. I think Derrick Henry is a value pick, actually, anywhere basically in the second round. And I'm not really surprised that he did that. In fact, Josh Jacobs is another of my favorite running backs. I don't know, maybe because I'm an Alabama Crimson Tide fan and I lived in Alabama for 30 years. You go. So I know all the Bama guys. Tua's a Bama guy. All these guys, And so when I saw that, I'm like, oh my God. I said to myself, I'm going to be drafting wide receiver again in round 2, even though I drafted one in round 1. I said, then I'm just going to look at the running backs for a while, and I did for 3 rounds.
So there's no way that you would ever take Henry in the first round. And what I'm getting at is if you show up in Las Vegas, you're drafting 3 teams, and you've been assigned a draft pick of the 3rd. You got the 3rd pick, you're not going to take him there. Right. You got the 6th pick, you're not going to take him there. If you got the 9 pick and you want to have Derrick Henry, what do you think?
Would you take him at 109, Mike, or would you just hope that he makes it back to you at 210 or 203?
Oh, that's a toughie. That's a toughie. That is a toughie. I wouldn't hesitate to take him in the 11 or 12 hole. Okay. At 9, it just depends on who else is there.
Right.
Because at the 9 hole, I've seen some drafts where Saquon Barkley slips to 8. So is Saquon going to make it to me at 9? I mean, there's been some interesting picks on the board. I've seen Gibbs go number 1 overall. Yep. You guys covered a draft, right? So things are unpredictable for the most part. What I found interesting is that when you're live in I love drafting live also. So of course I'm going to see you guys there in a couple of weeks. But when you're drafting live, it seems a little bit less predictable than when you're drafting online.
Yeah,
that's good.
And I always thought that I would have an easier time drafting online, but I really don't. And it seems that, and maybe it's because I'm actually drafting in 2 main event teams back to back on Saturday this year. And I kind of planned that because I was like, I'm doing a little bit better in these live drafts, and maybe I can adjust a little bit better than some of these other guys that seem to be kind of frozen or something. I'll never forget one guy at the very end of one draft. He was like his cheat sheets were completely overtaken, and he was the very last pick in the draft. And the guy asked him, "All right, who do you want?" "Oh, taken." No, taken. No, he's also taken. Literally, he went to about 10 names before he grabbed some dude that didn't do anything. So you got to be prepared to draft anything, And there are some people that just freeze, and it's like, and then you say 10 seconds, and then all of a sudden, and their strategy just blows up.
When we get to Saturday, you're going to have 4 teams that have stats on the board, which really changed everything. And last year with Henry, after that miserable first game, when I drafted the next day, I was able to take him with the first pick of the 4th round.
Yeah, he was sliding. He was sliding before that game.
Mike, before Ferrell asks you the final question about ffmastermind.com, which we all want to hear about, just to pick your Crimson Tide brain, there are a lot of people banking on a Jameson Williams breakout this season. I just want to get your feel on that and how likely you think that's going to happen in Detroit.
Well, I don't understand what this breakout. He had the breakout last year. Was his
1,000 yards? Yeah.
1,000 yards and what he 9, 10? How many scores did he have? I mean, I'm just going off the top of my head. Yeah, nine scores. So, but can he do a little bit better this year? I think he can. Is he? I'm not quite so sure because you still got St. Brown there. You got Laporta, and Laporta was healthy by the end of the season. He really started kicking it in and drawing the targets and all. And they're just going to keep spreading around. But Jameson takes advantage. The routes, the deeper routes that he runs, he takes advantage of making big plays. And he did this in Alabama. And I was like, I want him to stay. For another year or two. But I was like, no, he's gone. I mean, it's some things like that are you can't cage an animal like that. So I knew that when he was healthy, it was like, oh my God, tears his ACL. It's going to take him a whole season to get acclimated, and that's exactly what happened. And people slept on him. And in one of the drafts, I sagged him there, and he helped me get to the playoffs. So I like Jameson Williams this year.
You like a lot of players. You can find a lot of players that when you see a player, I think you find qualities in him that may translate to success on the field and help us in fantasy ball. Tell us who one is tonight that you haven't spoken about, a player that you would like perhaps in those later rounds, because I found that very intriguing of some of the things you're doing in the later rounds, but a player that you would really like to get on your roster. And then is there a guy that you just won't touch?
Well, another guy that I like late round is Josh Palmer. I've always liked the way he plays, the route running, the fact that, he just didn't get the opportunity as a Charger with Lad McConkey coming into his own. I picked him up in a couple of leagues, and I was like, come on, and he'd get 3-4 catches for 50 yards. And I'm like, oh, come on, But now that he's in Buffalo with Josh Allen, there wasn't a number one that really didn't need to be a number one last year, but he could use a number one. And I just think a lot of people are overlooking him. I don't understand why he's going so late. And once again, I grabbed this guy in the 15th round of the Pros versus Joes. I think he does have a shot to be the WR1 for them. I don't see the separation that Keon Coleman can't get there. Dalton Kincaid is a solid tight end, but we already went through that last year. I don't think he has the talent to be the number one guy in that offense. And of course, he hurt his knee. Now he's healthy now, but you got other guys there, Shakir, great slot guy, but he's going to get you 80, 90 catches and 900 yards and 5 scores, but he's not going to blow up. I think if Palmer's given enough targets, and Josh Allen develops the chemistry with him, he looks good in camp so far. I can see more than 1,000 yards and 70 catches, maybe upwards of 10 scores. I don't know if I'm dreaming there, but you go where the guy lands in free agency and the talent around him, and if he's healthy, everything's lining up.
Well, listen, Mike, if you're dreaming, I'm in that same dream with you. Because Josh Palmer right now is going at wide receiver 62 at that 13-14 turn. He is going behind guys like Rashad Bateman, Marvin Mims, Brandon Ayuk. I'm going to bring this up too, and you got him a little bit later in your pros versus Joes. You mentioned Khalil Shakir. Bear in mind that Shakir hurt his ankle, and he may not be right until week 1 of the season. It was a high ankle sprain, which normally has a high risk of re-injury. This was the same ankle he hurt last year as well. And if that's the case, and Keon Coleman does not take a step forward, like, I don't know, like, I'm with you. Dalton Kincaid may just be a guy. Maybe he takes a step forward this year. It really doesn't matter for me what Kincaid and Keon Coleman and Shakir and all these guys. Like, Palmer's in the 14th round, dude. He's in the 15th round, 14th, 15th round, whatever it is. Wide receiver 62. You are losing nothing if you miss on that Josh Palmer pick right there, and you have everything to gain. What do the ship chasing guys always say? This is a small miss, big hit. This is the type of player you want to be in business with. And I am 100% line and step with you on Joshua Palmer this year for sure. For anybody else who is wondering who are some of the sleepers, the targets, the fades, draft strategy, here's where you go. FFmastermind.com, FFmastermind.com. MIke Nazarek has been operating this website for 30 years. Mike, for anybody who's never subscribed before, what are they getting when they hook up with you at FFmastermind.com?
Well, I try to keep this simple. I know what works, so I stick with it. I'm not going to mess up, don't fix what ain't broke. So basically, we have a preseason draft guide, and we're always adding to it every year. We got 23 articles in it right now. It's all strategy related. The NFF Mastermind draft plan. I got sleepers and creepers. I got rankings all over the place, profiles and such. The guide's probably going to end up over 300 pages. In the past, it's been 400 or 500 pages. I had so much material in it. People actually, my subscribers are coming to me and saying, too much stuff in this. I don't have time to read like 60 pages on offensive line analysis. I just wanted rankings. I said, okay, well, so we kind of compared it back and all. And of course, we have some drafting software, Excel spreadsheet that pairs right with our Masters list, which is our customizable cheat sheets, also Excel based, and you can use with your draft and all. And of course, the weekly newsletters with daily releases, the market feature, waiver wire on Sunday night, picks to click and flick, on Monday, rankings for the week, flex rankings, not PPR, injuries all over the place. I got a page dedicated strictly. Basically, the flagship has always been NFL Quick Bits, and everything that all news related, posting bits on that every single day. Mm-hmm. Well, when the season begins, all the injury stuff goes premium. So people that subscribe to us, I know other sites cover it all. We cover every single injury, and if anything is important, not only will I comment on it, then I send an email to all my subscribers about it. And if you subscribe, you can actually email me and get my opinion. I'll answer. I'm not going to say, oh, I don't have time, I'm too busy. Oh, okay. Hey, Joe, I know you're staff member number 68. Can you answer the question? No. I answer the question because this is what I do for a living. So I take customer service very seriously, and I wouldn't be around here 30 years if I didn't.
Damn straight.
MIke Nazarek, ladies and gentlemen, FFmastermind.com is where to go. You can connect with him on the X as well, at FF Mastermind. And I'll bring this up too, Mike. I looked this up while we were talking tonight. All time, you are 10th overall in the pros versus Joes standings and bear in mind that we got a lot of people on this list with all the Joes over the years. I mean,
it makes him the top pro.
Oh, no, he's not quite the top pro.
Yes, he is. Check. Did Armani do those numbers?
He did, yeah. And Armani is
that's the first thing he's ever gotten wrong.
Grain of salt there. So 650 names on this list. MIke Nazarek is 10th overall, and he is, as far as everybody who was in the competition this year, as far as the pros go, Mike is 4th overall, including what I think is a record. I don't know if anybody else has ever done this. 2015, 2016, back-to-back third place overall finishes. So this guy knows what he's doing. He is a high-stakes grinder. There's plenty of pros in this contest that don't play FFPC, which is fine, whatever. Mike does it. He walks the walk. He talks the talk, and you should be listening to the listen or whatever the appropriate response is on that. But Mike, anytime we get a chance to talk to you, it's always a treat. Thank you so much for all the insight you provided tonight. FFmastermind.com is where to go. FF Mastermind, and of course, FF Mastermind on X, man. I will see you shortly at Paris Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas in a few weeks, man. Until then, man, enjoy drafting season and keep up the great work.
Well, thank you. I want to say one time before we go here, because it's 30 years, and I always give a discount offer to listeners here. If somebody wants to try the old man's service, because I'm getting up there, I'm gonna be 60 freaking years old in like a month. I can't believe I've been doing this from 30 to 60.
Buddy. That's where life
I know. So the special discount code, I always used to give 20% off, right? Well, we're celebrating 30, right? So it's 30% off. 30% off the Super Bowl package. The code is FFPC. What else would it be? FFPC 18. So if you go to my site, ffmastermind.com, you click on order there, choose the Super Bowl package, $59.95. You get $18 off if you put in FFPC 18, and you can get the whole thing for $42. And that's under 45. The Pro Bowl package is our second tier package. That's 50. So you're getting more value that way too. 30% off. I don't know. So and also one wants to pick my brain here. Anyone that's playing the FFPC, since I'm playing, I've got 3 main event teams this year. So you want to know what I'm thinking, and I might be in your draft. Buy my product, and you'll get my rankings. Okay, I think it's a no-brainer, but
That's awesome.
Congratulations.
Hey, MIke Nazarek is a man of the people. Don't anybody ever forget that. Remember, that discount code for the Super Bowl package at ffmastermind.com is FFPC18. FFPC18. That's going to get you 30% off that $59.95 value. And listen, if you are drafting live in Las Vegas, you're going to feel a lot better having the Mastermind's rankings in front of you when you see the FF Mastermind across the table in front of you at Paris Casino in Las Vegas. Continue to keep up all the great work, Mike. FFmastermind.com, FF Mastermind on the X. We will look forward to talking with you again very soon. And be good, man. I will look forward to catching up in Las Vegas here shortly.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure, guys, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
You got it. That is MIke Nazarek, ladies and gentlemen. The Fantasy Football Mastermind. Remember, ffmastermind.com is where to go and enter in that discount code FFPC18 for 30% off that Super Bowl package. It is worth it in spades. This guy, all he does is win. He's had an extraordinarily good track record, not only in the Pros versus Joes, but in the FFPC Main Event and FFPC High Stakes Leagues as well. Good to talk with Mike. Good to talk with Craig Campbell. Good to talk with Ferrell Elliott. Ferrell, I'm going to let you get some rest tonight. Because you have Sunday is the big event in Northern Kentucky for the KFFSC Live Events. Everything is sold out there. However, there are a few spots left in Louisville, not this weekend, but the coming weekend. I think 6 spots overall.
6 spots overall. Yeah. Also on Saturday night, 8 and 11. Come make it a late night action. We can get you in. And for the listeners that want to play our 11 o'clock, that's our Midnight Madness draft. That's our Midnight Madness 2 on Saturday night. We're going to open that up to some virtual players. So if you're at home, can't make the trip, but you would like to play live involved where in a draft where you can then bid on your draft position. That's the advantage of being a virtual drafter rather than an online drafter. You can join the bidding group and get your position.
The other thing I want to say is, speaking of virtual drafters, the KFFSC has online stuff going on a ton until the start of the season. So you will not have to wait long for a KFFSC main event to fill. We have a no huddle 2-hour slow draft, which I got to tell my buddy West Coast Threats to sign up for, because he and I are going to be splitting a team in that as well. The Sunday main event, the fullback dive division, that is going to be open 6 o'clock Eastern time there. It's open right now. You can register for that. But, dude, a ton of online main events until the start of the season, where you can take advantage of the 24th annual KFFSC main event featuring a $25,000 grand prize. I got a ton of teams in the main event. I'll probably have a few more before the end of the season. Looking forward to seeing you in Louisville, Ferrell. KFFSC.com is where to go. Good luck in Northern Kentucky on Sunday. I know you're going to crush it. I know a lot of people are excited about it, myself included. Have fun on Sunday, my friend. And we will talk with you live in Louisville next week.
See you soon, sir.
That is Ferrell Elliott, ladies and gentlemen, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, hanging out with us here tonight on the annual 2025 Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship live events preview episode. I want to thank MIke Nazarek, Craig Campbell, Ferrell Elliott, the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and of course, each and every one of you for hanging out with us tonight. We will be back this Friday at a special 7 p.m. Eastern time start on location at the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship live events in Louisville. And joining me, co-hosting with me that night, was a guy who was in the chat room earlier tonight, FFPC and KFFSC League champion Dominic Guzzetti. Let him know what part of the old country your family's from. If you are Italian, he's going to love to know that. We will be broadcasting live at 7 o'clock Eastern time this coming Friday, live in Louisville for that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. In case you missed it, we did the FFPC Insider Access show last night on the Better Sports Network with one Pete Nova from Player Profiler and Fantasy Football Faceoff. A lot of great stuff on that show. Pete is very knowledgeable, and he dished a lot for any of you high-stakes players out there who are looking for certain evaluations on players. We did a lot of them last night. So make sure you're watching that back on the Better Sports Network or the FFPC socials. We will be back this coming Thursday for Insider Access at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Big Gorilla Tournament is going on right now with the FFPC $1 Million Grand Prize. 7 Bananas promo is live. Check that out at myffpc.com. Find out how you can win a jungle safari for 4 just for participating, not even drafting well or building a winning team in that. The FFPC Main Event, our flagship event, is going on right now at myffpc.com. $1 Million Grand Prize there as well. Don't forget about the FFPC Best Ball and Superflex Best Ball Tournaments. $300,000 and $100,000 grand prizes going on there. We added a $100,000 runner-up prize for the FFPC Best Ball Tournament this year as well. And Dynasty Startups, yeah, they're still going strong. They are running out on this season because we are less than 3 weeks away from the start of the 2025 NFL season. Check that out. Entry fee starting at $100, going all the way up to $5,000. 2,000 plus leagues in the last 15 years. None have ever folded. myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which will be next Wednesday evening. Aiden LaCorey, Dave Tripoli being joined by Howard Bender from Fantasy Alarm for live FFPC draft coverage. That's going to be a lot of fun on Wednesday evening. And then you got me on Insider Access with a special guest co-host on Thursday. And then we're live in Louisville on Friday. It's going to be a great week to be paying attention to high-stakes fantasy football in the FFPC. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening, streaming, downloading, watching. We appreciate each and every one of you. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Normally, I give you an update on the midnight draft. It starts in 25 minutes, and don't worry about it because it's already full. We don't have any more drafts filling up tonight. However, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow, the Big Gorilla will get back on track. I'm going to send you an email tomorrow morning of everything going on FFPC related, so you can find out exactly when you can draft in the Big Gorilla in the main event. Don't forget, KFFSC.com. What's that website? KFFSC.com for everything going on with the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship main event, live in Louisville or online for you virtual drafters as well. Compete against me. Compete against a ton of people, including Craig Campbell, the defending main event champion, at KFFSC.com. It's always a fun time to be drafting fantasy football in the KFFSC and FFPC this time of year. Ferrell didn't think we'd go an hour and a half tonight. We went 91 minutes. So there you go. A little bonus fantasy football talk for you this evening. Thanks so much, everybody. We will talk with you again next week.